Ignite posted on our Instagram story asking the students of Humber and Guelph Humber if they had any questions or concerns that they want to address during this anti-Black racism roundtable. So the first question that I have here, and it's open to everybody on the panel, is how can we escalate concerns to senior leadership and trust that they'll take appropriate action when in terms of anti-Black racism?
I think they need to start putting youth in the front lines. Our youth need to be in the front lines. Our Black women need to be in the front lines. You know, we need to start framing leadership in a different way. And that kind of goes back into the intersections I talked about earlier of, you know, we often see a specific image, a specific narrative of what leadership looks like. And it's usually white, male, straight, you know, and we need to start reframing that and unlearning that and understanding that, you know, there are other people who are probably more qualified and have a lot more impact to be in those leadership positions. And I strongly believe that it's women and it's youth, and we need to start giving marginalized communities that space too. Minorities, people of color, Black and Indigenous folks, you know, they need to start being on the front lines, and they need to start, you know, creating those change within those businesses, within those corporations. And it's time for, you know, those senior CEOs who are white, straight, and male to take a seat.
Anyone else want to take up this question of moving leadership to act?
If I could say, I think on the question of moving leadership to act, one of the most effective things you can do is really rely on the language, wording, and the spirit of policies that are in place as it relates to making complaints or raising concerns. Because sometimes what happens when concerns are raised is that the responding authority will often distract. They'll talk about a bunch of other things that they're doing or suggest that they didn't mean what they said or essentially deflect in some kind of way. But being hyper-focused and saying, your policy says X and or Y, and in the circumstances you fell below the threshold of the policy. And what that policy also says that when that happens, this is the consequence. And so follow your own rules. I didn't make these rules. We didn't make these rules. You actually agreed to be bound by these rules. Now you have to follow them. And if you don't, then I'm going to have to go over your head. However that looks, it depends on the circumstances and the setting. But overwhelmingly, there is some form of complaint mechanism that you can use based on written policies and practices. And if not within that immediate educational or employment space, more generally, if we're talking about anti-Black racism, and we are, it's an anti-Black racism roundtable, you always have the Ontario Human Rights Code, which you have access to. So there is the Human Rights Legal Support Center in Ontario that you can seek out for information and guidance, or you can go directly to the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal and file a complaint. Those are options available to you. Now, pursuing one or the other option will definitely depend on the circumstance, but know that even if you're in an environment that doesn't have strong policies, you do have options outside of that immediate organization to follow up.
My first book, which was entitled The Black Campus Movement, and this book was really a national study of a time when Black students were coming into higher education at unprecedented numbers, and they were especially coming into historically white colleges and universities in large numbers in the late 60s and early 1970s. And what these students did is they organized Black student unions on many campuses across the country. But they didn't just organize BSUs so they can party with each other, even though they did party and partied well. They would essentially do investigations of their schools and their colleges to figure out what was needed, what policy changes needed to be implemented so that they could have a better learning experience. And typically they made formal requests for those policy changes, you know, before the administration. Sometimes they even made demands. But what was critical, and sometimes they even protested when those requests or demands were not implemented. But I think what was critical was them organizing themselves, you know, was them forming power through that organization. It wasn't just 3 students going to upper administration asking for more Black faculty. It was literally an organization that represented almost the entire Black student body that was well organized And I think, so I would sort of emphasize and encourage students to really think about that critical organizing work. To organize and put people together in organizations is what's going to give you the power that then causes administrators to listen to you and respond to you.
What are some ways I can help influence change within our justice system as a whole?
Okay, so Black Lives Matter Greater New York has created an agenda with a list of demands and policies that we are fighting to be implemented, not just in New York City, but federally. And if you guys want a full overview of what that looks like, you can go to www.blackopportunities.com. This agenda was created by and for the community, and it is always open for review. But in terms of creating change within the justice system, it starts with us. And a lot of times we look to elected officials to do all of the work. But at the end of the day, the power belongs within the people. We put those elected officials in office. And if they are not doing what they swore to do, then we have the power to take them out. And if someone is running for office and their track record does not align with the things that are coming out of their mouth, we have the power to not even allow them to get that seat. But we really have to remember that as a people, we have the power, because there's been this culture of putting elected officials on such a high pedestal that they think they're untouchable. Like, they walk around like they're celebrities, like they're above everyone. And you work for us. So letting them know that, hey, you cannot just get away with whatever. Like, we really have to create a system of accountability, and voting is just the first step. You have to stay on these elected officials like white on rice. My community in Brownsville, Brooklyn, they know who I am. I show up to those town hall meetings. I show up to those police meetings, police community relation meetings, raising hell. The 73rd precinct knows exactly who I am, and they know my face. Make sure that these people in leadership knows your face, knows your community stories, and knows that if you do wrong by us, there will be repercussions to follow, and you will be held accountable. And one specific policy that I've been organizing around for over 3 years now is the establishment of an elected civilian review board. And in short, that policy would give power to the community to evaluate police misconduct and brutality cases from an unbiased perspective. Because we all know the police can't prosecute the police, and that's why oftentimes we never see justice. So even implementing the ECRB, that's the acronym for it, that is radically transformative in terms of walking towards justice for Black people in this country when it comes to the criminal justice system. So just rallying around policies, petitions, organizers, organizations, or even starting your own, that would help propel this movement. And there's not one way to go about this movement. There's multiple ways that you can contribute. And in whichever way you choose to contribute, just make sure that you have strategy.
So I think there are two ways. You can become a member or join one of the many organizations across the country that are literally fighting and advocating for policy change within the criminal justice system, whether that's policy change to curb mass incarceration or curb police violence or eliminate cash bail, on down the line. And so, there are many organizations engaged in this work. So you can be a part of those organizations, or you can decide that you want to create a path so you can become a policymaker. In other words, or create a path so that you can become a prosecutor. There's possibly no more important position in the criminal justice system today than prosecutors, which is why there's been a movement for more progressive prosecutors all over this country who are not as focused as previous prosecutors as locking up as many Black and brown people as possible. Or you could create a mechanism in which you could become a judge or an attorney general, or even a public defender. So you can sort of think through what do you want to sort of be? Do you want to be a policymaker? Do you want to be a defender of people within the criminal justice system? Do you want to be advocating against the policies within the criminal justice system? Do you want to become an elected official who literally creates policies that make up the criminal justice system? I think you need to really think deeply about your own set of skills and where you want to contribute.
Thank you, panelists. This has been great.
Ignite, The Base, and the Humber College Center for Human Rights, Equity, and Diversity, we would like to extend our final huge thank you to the experts that guided us through this video series. Nupal Kiazolu, Anthony Morgan, Kiosha Love, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, and our moderator, Neil Price. Their work is vital in the fight for justice, and they are the torchbearers towards an anti-racist world. We hope this series has shed light on just how deep anti-Black racism is rooted in our culture. But more importantly, we ask that you now continue this work on your own. This series has been a piece of a global justice movement that will only see success if everyone does their part. So, continue self-educating, continue donating, continue signing petitions, continue calling out casual racism at home, and continue pushing for government officials to change racist policies. If you're looking for a place to start, Dr. Kendi's best-selling book, How to Be Anti-Racist, is available at indigo.ca. To quote the book, "One either allows racial inequities to preserve as a racist or confronts racial inequities as an anti-racist. There is no in-between safe space for not racist. The claim of not racist neutrality is a mask for racism." Thank you for watching. Black Lives Matter.